Hello, my name is Lee Fairbrother and I work for a company called the Timelapse store. I want to talk to you today about the use of time-lapse video within digital marketing. So for most marketeers, the answer's a camera. What's the question? What I wanted to do today was give you an outline of some of the typical products that could be used for this quite unique discipline. Fast forward to today's era of mass media, and time-lapse video is one of the most effective marketing tools you can have. Much like aerial photography, time-lapse videos can tell a great story with minimal production costs. And just as important, it can be consumed by the audience relatively quickly. Understanding the story in a time-lapse requires very little time and concentration, which is a great advantage in today's crowded marketplace. There are compelling benefits of video marketing. Video boosts conversion rates. Video should be seen as an investment. According to HubSpot, including a video on your landing page can increase conversions by over 80%. Video is a great addition to your email marketing campaigns, and search engines just love video. Video also builds trust and overall company credibility, and video encourages social shares. But what is the optimum running time for video? It depends largely on what you actually want to say. For example, you can see from this graphic, if you were presenting a customer testimonial, then 30 seconds or less will be the optimum time. However, if you're looking to create a product demonstration, then 1 to 3 minutes is the optimum time. However, for most social media activities, I would say anything between 30 and 60 seconds is the optimum time for embedded video within a website. Now, video on your website is a great way to improve your website's SEO. So, search engine optimization, SEO, as it's abbreviated to, helps search engines such as Google find your website quickly and easily. Search engines like to prioritize websites with video. This is mainly because video is more engaging. While a picture is worth 1,000 words, video is probably worth millions. So, what actually is SEO? Search engine optimization is how to increase the visibility of your website on search engine pages. This helps drive people to your business. But the key thing with SEO is try to identify the big hitters. Now, you can see from this graph that the 3 sections of consistent publication of high quality content, keywords in meta title tags, and backlinks occupy over 60% of available SEO ranking. So it makes sense to attack these areas first. So if you can produce consistently high quality video on a regular basis within your websites and digital platforms, and couple that with key meta tag information with generic backlinks, you're going to cover almost 60% of the available SEO rankings. Now, the higher your website ranks, the better it means more people are going to see it, which means the search engines start to like you more and more. Now, that's the theory. It takes a lot to work out to make sure your website stands out from the crowd. So how does video help SEO? Now, the biggest search engine in the world, Google, is increasingly prioritizing websites that use video content. Now, this is largely thanks to the fact it owns YouTube. But adding video helps increase your search engine results page, SERP, by a number of things. Increasing the amount of video on your click-through, including video drives, increases an extra 157% of organic growth to your search engines. Your bounce back rate is significantly lower if you include video. So this is the time taken from people to enter your site, decide they don't like it, and then bounce back out again. If you can keep them longer on your site, the greater the ranking. So fewer people will bounce in and out of your site if you include video. Backlinks. In order to create a better backlink, it has to be non-specific. It's got to be suitable for general use. Now, maintenance, help, tips, these kind of things, people can share. And the more people that share your links to your site, the greater the rankings of your own site. So if you are going to create a video, Always spend some time for generic ones which give you a market general benefit, but not you specifically. So how do you use quality video successfully? To start ranking on the SERPs, you need to optimize your video marketing efforts. Start to use videos on your website now. Once you've made a quality video, you need to publish it wherever you can. Now, this tells Google that you have a quality website and that it's been all well thought through, and it helps boost your ranking. But where do you publish this? Not only on your own site, you should publish it on Vimeo and on YouTube and any other social media sharing platforms. Give your video context. Don't just drop the video onto a blank page with one or little lines of text. You need to explain why it's there to search engines. Once people are on your pages, they will watch a video rather than read a lot of words. But you have to encourage the search engine to point to them in your website first. So make sure that the text tells a story. Make sure that the text gives a good introduction to the video content. You need to educate and engage your users. So search engines see when people revisit your website. So the best way to encourage them back is to create regular, educational, informative, and engaging videos. If you try to create your own video and it doesn't excite viewers, then it is in fact telling search engines that the content is not engaging and they will not rank you at all. Include some technical details. As well as uploading your video to the website, you should also upload it to YouTube and Vimeo. This increases your chances of it being viewed because people search for topics and prefer to view the content there as opposed to your direct site. YouTube needs information such as keywords in the description as well, title tags and the video length. Some of this information needs to be inputted when the video is added. If you can be specific on the title, make sure you are. All this helps search engines find your video. The big question, do I use video or photography? Well, they both have pros and cons. The video tells a story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It might require some degree of text to introduce the video or the clip, but invariably it will be a large file size. And the problem with that is that some websites take too long to load and people get bored and bounce out of it. Equally so, you may find that some servers can't cope with that capacity. Video does have a greater user engagement once it's running, but in order to generate the video, you probably need to spend more time on site. Whereas photography offers a single snapshot of an element of the story. It will require some text, probably more so than video. It will require an introduction. As it's a single snapshot, potentially, it has a very small file size and therefore has a shorter engagement. You may need a number of snapshots to make it work. But the benefit is that you spend less time on site capturing those snapshots. There is no answer to this. There is no absolute optimum. So why not consider a mixture of both? A good website has a mixture of media, video, images, good quality text, and great graphics. There are essentially three different types of video: real-time, time-lapse, and stop motion. Which one you use for your website depends on the message you're trying to get over. But here's an overview of all three. Now, real-time video you see every day on your TV screens. It's capturing images of typically 25 to 30 frames per second. It has a large capacity, as I said before. On a few seconds of video, you could be looking at gigs worth of data. But it does tell a story, but it requires a lot of bandwidth and a lot of time to tell the story. So a typical building site, for instance, may be months and months of video, and it's not really practical to launch this onto a website. Time-lapse is slightly different. The basic principle of video is similar, but it captures a lot less frames per second. Typically anything from one every few seconds to one every day. It depends on the duration of your video and also the type of project you're trying to present. But it will tell a story because it's a small file size. It will have a very short duration which covers the beginning, the middle, and the end. As a consequence, there's significantly more engagement because people stay to the end of the video. Time-lapse video by far is the most engaging medium in this sector. Now, I've only included this really because I quite like Morph. It's one of the best examples of stop motion. It really is. So stop motion is the same as time-lapse, but it simply just captures images in a manually derived way. So the thing with stop motion, it's predominantly, I'll just clear this, I don't need that. So stop motion is essentially time lapse, and you can achieve the same thing with a manual intervalometer, but it's quite labor intensive. So unless you actually want something quite specific and you want to control those images, I would say that you probably don't use stop motion and you focus on time lapse. That's probably it. And again, I'd like to stay and watch more for a little longer, but realistically, we need to move on. So time-lapse video captures milestones of projects. It brings them to life in a short-form video, allowing all stakeholders to celebrate the success of the project and reflect on a job well done. In addition, time-lapse videos can deliver huge value to marketing, PR, and communication teams within many industries. Time-lapse video and photography requires far less manpower than the all singing or dancing production. And you can capture literally years worth of footage and tell a compelling story without the need to go down into those heavy production costs. Most digital SLRs these days have interval features built in, but even if your camera doesn't, there's a lot of useful time-lapse products you can buy at a relatively low cost. Before you buy a dedicated time-lapse camera, ask yourself these questions. What resolution do I need? If it's just for yourself and your own family, then 720p is more than okay. If it's for social media, then you really need to start at 1080p. But if it's an ultra high definition project or used in broadcast, then you've got to start looking at 4K. Although most systems only output at 1080, the advantage of 4K allows you more editing flexibility. Bear in mind that the bigger the resolution, the more data storage you're going to need. For example, a typical 720p camera or image is about 70K, whereas a standard 4K image is about 5 megs, and RAW images are probably 3 times this. You need to decide what timing you plan to use. Now, this depends on the project you're filming, the duration of the project, and how much editing you want to apply. So if you're doing something like moving traffic or fast moving clouds, then 1 image a second is fine. However, if you're looking at larger construction projects running many months or even years, then 1 image every 5 or even 15 minutes is where you should be. There are a number of site constraints. Look at the location of the camera. Does it give you the field of view you're looking for? Is the power and communications available on site? If the answer is no, then you have to consider battery powered or solar powered. Look at site security. Is the camera safe to leave for a long period of time? Are there any specific local conditions such as fast-growing ivy or changes of site construction locations? And have you got access throughout the entire project? When you look at the maintenance and servicing of the camera, it's also important to make sure that any power supplies you use are reliable. Will they be available 24/7? Is the storage you plan to use for the camera adequate for the duration of the project? If it's not, how often do you need to schedule maintenance to change that SD card? Would you need to clean the camera? Some building sites are very, very dirty, and consequently the lenses may need cleaning every month. Most importantly, time-lapse is a nice, stable platform. Is the continuity of the camera position? Will it always be in that position? If the answer is no, consider moving the shot and cutting to the new place to come back. The location of the camera is key. Now, the rule of thirds applies for time-lapse photography as it does for standard photography. What you need to do here is look for at least a third of what you see in the field of view is the bit that changes. That's an absolute minimum. Realistically, you're looking at 40 to 50% of the field of view is the bit that's going to capture the imagination of the user. So this is the bit that's going to change. And finally, the choice of camera itself. There are essentially 5 different types: compact, component, ultra high definition, digital SLR, and remote access. The compact camera is probably the most widely sold time-lapse camera in the UK and Europe. Um, very easy to use, self-contained, probably run on a standard series of AA batteries, automatically capture the images and convert them into a video file, either AVI or MP4 format. Most of the compact cameras run for typically 60 days on a set of batteries and will have what we call a single event same day timer. So you can set your working day, let's say it's 9 to 5, and the camera will turn on and off every day of the week, including weekends, to match that working day. As I said before, it's a very simple camera to use. Simply set the time and date, press OK, and then come back in, say, 60 days' time. The component type of camera is aimed mainly at the professional photographer. This is where you mix some of your existing camera assets with dedicated intervalometers or controllers. So in this example here, we show a typical GoPro action camera being used with a dedicated weatherproof case and solar panel and a remote control intervalometer. Now, this solution works well if you understand the components you're using. But bear in mind that products like GoPro change their firmware regularly. So it may not be that that firmware works with that version of intervalometer or even power supply. So its integral sort of stability relies on the fact that you keep abreast of all the firmware changes throughout. Again, the components solution is not for the faint-hearted. A developing requirement these days is remote access. Certainly with COVID, it's very tricky to get to site and also get access throughout the site. So the ultra high definition solution is gaining popularity. This example here is a 6K 220-degree field of view camera with remote access and solar power, which means the camera can sit on site for as long as you want, and it seamlessly sends all the images, not the video itself, it's pure hard copy images, to a secure server. The great benefit of UHD is that although the output of, say, 6K is higher than most broadcast or even social media platforms will allow, you can quite easily crop to a viewing window of, say, 1080 and output a very nice panoramic scroll through the video using the raw 6K images. Now, the historic way of doing time-lapse is with a digital SLR. Great asset user if you've got a camera that you can spare for long-term projects. This one is a typical product where you've got a weatherproof case, an intervalometer, a degree of communications, and a power supply. It's really as simple to use. If you can use your own digital SLR camera, you can use one of these. The only issue, of course, is you're now going to tie up that camera for the duration of the project, which means that some of the long-term projects, sort of 1-2 years sort of duration, will tie up a most valuable asset. So bear that in mind when you consider the digital SLR product. Now, if you're lucky enough to have dedicated mains or even a network on site, then true remote access solutions are always possible. The great benefit of these is you can use a conventional CCTV camera or a network camera to couple to a network or a transmission system and send real-time video as well as time-lapse to a secure server. The key thing with true remote access cameras is they will need mains. They are conventional CCTV platforms, which means they probably can draw up to 2 to 3 amps. So battery work is not really advised for this type of application. Now, in closing, may I just add one important message? If you're going to embark on a time-lapse video project, be prepared. Murphy's Law is the law of all time-lapse video. If something can go wrong, it will go wrong, and it will go wrong on a time-lapse project. Always consider plan B. Look at the battery life of the product and specify something 30% greater than you need. Look at the SD card capacity and make sure that you service and visit that site to service that SD card at least 30% through its life. If the budget allows and it's possible, don't introduce a single point of failure. One camera, can go wrong and the entire project's ruined. If you can have alternate camera positions and alternate cameras, that's a great thing. Be prepared for client changes. This happens a lot. You just work out the perfect angle of view, and the client then says, "Oh no, I need to have this image captured," or "I'm going to remove that fixing point from the site." And lastly, obviously consider theft. These are very expensive assets, so it's important that they are secured well on site. So in summary, video is the most powerful medium for digital marketing. Time-lapse video tells the full story quicker. Time-lapse video files are smaller and easier to share. Ensure that you use all video platforms and share content well. Optimize your content with SEO and review and change regularly. Always consider Murphy's Law and plan, plan, plan. So time-lapse video can bring a project to life, no matter its length or its breadth. It can help you build trust with your audience, who can see each stage of the work evolving in front of them, and they can capture both large-scale events and tiny details, allowing us to take in long periods of time in just a few minutes. If you need to know more about this, please visit us at our website at www.timelapse.store. Thank you for your time.
Hi, hope you enjoyed that short presentation on marketing and video. There are quite a few questions coming through at the moment, so I'll try and answer them as I can. But in summary, you've got to bear in mind that the video is a full process. Marketing is a total process from beginning to end. It's important to do your marketing in a timely manner, not too early, not too late. Bear in mind that video is just part of the process. There are lots of other things to take on board as well. Okay, let me just refresh my screen here. Okay, so the first question is on resolution. The question is, what resolution do we need for social media? The key thing really is, where are you intending to output your video? For example, if you want to use sort of general social media, people's monitors, PCs, laptops, phones, then a 4K presentation may be wasted on them. A typical monitor is about 1080p anyway. So you're going to lose your resolution there. However, if there's a possibility that your marketing presentation could be used in a bigger format, like large screen printing or monitors, then consider that higher resolution. The thing with the resolution, though, is it's data. Obviously, a typical, say, 720p camera frame is about sort of 70K, whereas a full frame HD image could be as high as 5 megs. So that's going to take a lot of data. Now, you've got to find a way to get this data to your portal. Most people will tend to use YouTube, and they're getting better and better. And so now you can actually quite happily shipped your 4K solutions to YouTube. But obviously, if you capture something in 23, 25 megapixel, 16K even, then that's going to be absolutely wasted. So the key thing with resolution is determine where your output is. If it's only going to be on a mobile phone, then realistically 720, 1080 is going to work. Just bear that in mind. Okay, so what I've got okay. Yeah, question on the type of camera. The type of camera depends on your resolution. This is why it's all linked, really. So what is the story you're trying to tell? What's the resolution you're trying to output? And more importantly, have you got the budget? Because if you actually want a 4 or 6K resolution, but you've only got a budget for a 720, then you're going to have to manage it that way. You know, it's all about the budget you're going to apply. Most of the compact cameras are about 1080. They're pretty easy to install. They're pretty easy to use. Some of the higher resolutions demand a higher price tag. However, the performance, the final result is that much better. So again, it depends on site access, your own view on security. I hate to say this, but the UK has a terrible record for theft on site. I'm not sure if it's because we're all descendant from Robin Hood, but it's in the genes, it seems, that things do go walkabouts. If you're going to look at site security, take a look at it from a potential thief's perspective. Most thefts tend to be opportunists. They'll just tend to see a camera or see something that looks valuable and take it. So if you can remove that opportunist element, i.e. make it higher, make it harder for them to get it down, put a padlock around it if you need to. We have some clients certainly camouflage them up. That's great, but sometimes the projects can be that long, you may not be able to find it at the end of the project. So assess the security. Do you need extra protection on site? Do you need locks and shackles? Do you need to mount the camera high? These things are taken into consideration as well. Let me just refresh this again. Sorry, that's probably why I'm not seeing them. Okay, I can't seem to refresh that from here. Not to worry, I'll kind of work around that. The question I was asked earlier was, what kind of title do we use for our video? The obvious thing for titles is, what message are you trying to get over? If you're, for example, a product photographer in Wolverhampton, use that as a title on your video. Product photography, Wolverhampton. The reason you do that is that search engines look at the title first before they look at the content. So all of these things come together as your final final story. As I said before, with time-lapse video, it's important to be prepared. Things do go wrong. Things will go wrong. Never use a single camera as your single point of failure. It will fail. It'll get stolen, or the video will not record at the best day. So always kind of build in some contingency into your plans. Yeah, it's unfortunately the chat is not refreshing on my screen now, unfortunately, at all. Just tried to reboot and it's not refreshing at all. Not to worry. Yeah, but I'm getting nothing on the chat either. So okay, not to worry. I think in terms of the use of video, as I said in the presentation, it just gives you a very good storytelling medium. Use it wisely, make it sharp and snappy. And if you wanted to mix it with other media, it will give you a very good return. I think you'll find if you use video, you will actually get some very good hits on your SEO. So hopefully this presentation has given you a good overview to that. And if you like to ask any more questions, please contact me directly at the Timelapse store. Again, thank you for your time.